Hello and welcome to Owl Bear Soup. I am one of your hosts. I'm Justin.
And I'm your other host, Rich. Hello. I'm excited. I'm
Hey.
excited. I'm ready.
Yeah. So yeah. There's a couple of interesting things I wanna hit off right at the top of the show. We are in fact streaming on Twitch and YouTube. What this means is we have made a decision to cancel our contract with Twitch, making us affiliate. So we soon should no longer be an affiliate, which means you can't subscribe to us specifically on Twitch, but it does mean you can watch us on both YouTube as well as over here on Twitch, potentially even expanding over to Facebook if this test continues to go well.
Ooh.
And I think, yeah, exactly, yeah. So I think that's just kind of the initial like, hey, by the way, those really cool emotes, like they might be going away, which is sad,
It
but
is. It is.
they are still they are still alive and well in our Discord, and we have some other cool things coming up to kind of help you be able to show your support as well as being able to help grow the show and get some cool stuff.
Very cool.
So
That's all positive.
all
All
right.
good.
It's all positive. Yeah. So I just wanted to get that out of there just in case. I don't know if you can still subscribe to us not currently on Twitch or not. We started the whole paperwork thing, and I think it's a good move. Our not all of our audience wants to come over to Twitch. Some of them are
Great.
over on YouTube. Some of them are on Facebook. So let's make sure we can hit them all.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So that's a good like future of the show, and we're gonna keep doing our monthly run throughs of new ideas. Like this was our last festivals episode today.
Yeah. So
Right.
we're gonna be wrapping up the festivals episode today, and
Deciding what's
yeah,
next.
yeah, it should be a ton of fun.
Cool.
All right. So, kicking it off, let's start this episode like we do every week. Well, let's start with a little bit of news. Do you have anything that you wanted to hit on? I have a whole plethora of things to
I
go
know,
through.
I know. So I just quickly want to jump in and say, like, DM's Guild authors have been leaping over to Kickstarter in the last few months. There's a ton of stuff on there right now. I want to go ahead and get like a rundown of a lot of those projects for next time, but for now, just keep your eyes out because there's a lot going on there. There's also the Black Friday sale at DM's Guild. I know I think everything's on sale for 25% off or so. So if you've been waiting, this
Yeah,
is your moment.
this is your chance.
This is your
Yeah,
chance.
I saw a lot of that on Twitter this morning when I was kind of bopping around, like a lot of really cool Black Friday sales,
Yeah.
including the oh man, what is it called? The book that was talking about ancestries and backgrounds, and
Ancestries and Culture, I believe, is that one. Um,
I was real close. Real close on that name. But yeah, and the reason I bring that up is because of some of the fallout from the most recent Tasha's book, and one of the clarifications Jeremy Crawford said, and I think Rich, you actually saw it as
mhm.
well, and it
Yeah,
was essentially saying that this is a progress, or just process. This is just a beginning. So I'm kind of interested to see how that all turns out. Like as far as like this,
right.
um, it
Yeah,
it
there
felt
could
like a
be a
weird
lot
answer
more.
to me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right's kind of an answer that is like justifying what we have done, but saying there will be more, showing it to be kind of a long-term process sort of thing. Um, and again, as we kind of look at it, I think our big hit from looking at Tasha's was that the what exists right now is kind of an easy thing for people to
Yeah.
process. It is not the huge chunky, right? I know a D&D design concept is they don't want to take character creation and turn it into traveler character creation or anything like that, where
Right.
that's a game in itself. So making it more complex, I mean, it kind of needs to be because it is more complex, but I see what they're
Yep.
trying to do, like take this in small steps and make it simple at the start.
Yep. Yeah, and I can kind of agree with that. I'm one of those people who is kind of hoping a little bit more, but I
Mhm.
understand the idea behind it and why they decided to do what they did, and yeah,
Yeah.
I think it'll continue to grow and change and evolve, and D&D will continue to be awesome.
right? And until then, my home games will be using that that DM's Guild product, Ancestry and Culture. Um, Meanwhile, my kids' games are on D&D Beyond, so I'm going to use whatever tools are available to me. So adapting ability scores is a pretty easy thing that we can do there.
Yeah, yeah, and I kind of think that's where I'm going to end up too.
Mhm.
Is maybe in my home game using that additional book,
Mhm.
but I don't know. Like, man, I keep going back and forth. Anyway,
I know.
anyway.
It's
Oh man,
experimenting
did you have
with the
anything
game
else?
design rules for goodness. So as long as you're
Yeah,
working on it,
yeah,
it's towards goodness.
yeah.
No, that's it for me. You've got a ton of stuff. Run it down.
I have a ton of stuff. Yeah, I'm going to run it down. We're going to stop on a couple of them that are super interesting. So the first one, this one we'll just hit real quick. There's going to be a new Dune RPG coming out, probably, to tie in with the new movie, and
Ooh.
so I think a lot of cool Dune stuff is coming around the corner. So for those folks who are missing out on their Dark Sun fix, you might be able
Mhm.
to get some sweet desert planet action here soon.
Do I remember right?
Um,
Is that Modifius doing that?
yep,
Okay.
Modifius is doing it.
I was just thinking about that in terms of like the clan structure of Dune as like, could they go back to like a Legend of the Nine Rings style like clan based
Yeah,
format would be pretty fun.
that would be
I
pretty
want to be a
rad.
Harkonnen. That's what I want to be.
Let's see here. Also, WizKids is going to be putting out a new set of miniatures. These miniatures are all going to be more common folk that you would see in a tavern. In addition, they are putting out a massive yawning portal tavern that you can buy for, I think it was like $350, but it looked
Yeah.
rad.
It's what
Multiple
it's like
stories,
three
had the yawning
stories.
portal
Yeah.
in it. Yeah, yeah, so good.
That's incredible. And it looks like uh the cover image, you're going to be able to recreate the cover image basically from that book where all
Mhm.
those adventures are from the Yawning Portal book, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah, I don't
smart.
know if it's the same minis like that are in the book,
Mhm.
but still you'll be able to
Yeah,
recreate a really cool yawning portal scene, and which
yeah,
would have
it's
been a ton of
great.
fun to have during my dragon heist game, but
It's true.
um I'll just have to run it again. Let's see here. So let's sticking with Wizards of the Coast. This might take a couple minutes to talk about. Let's talk about the history of Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro. So
I'm ready.
Hasbro bought Wizards of the Coast when uh, Pokemon licensed their game, their cards, their likenesses to Wizards of the Coast. So Hasbro bought it, including the contract to that, and that contract expired in 2003. So since then, since 2003, Hasbro has been trying to figure out what to do with Wizards of the Coast. That includes both Magic the Gathering, but they've been having a bit more trouble trying to figure out how to capitalize on Dungeons and Dragons. They seem to be doing great, but it is no surprise that RPGs are not big money makers when you compare it to things like Magic the
Sure.
Gathering
Mhm.
or even their Hasbro board games, like things like
Even
The Game of
Monopoly.
Life or whatever, right? Even Monopoly, right?
Mhm.
So recently a couple of lawsuits have come up. One from Margaret Weiss in relation to Dragonlance novels that were supposed to be coming out under the D&D banner. However, I guess the novels were written and D&D said nah, and
Yeah.
Margaret Weiss and team are suing Wizards of the Coast. In Hasbro, also the company Galeforce 9, who was making a lot of more of the premium miniatures, some of the premium additional products for D&D, including spell cards and monster cards, really cool
Mhm.
things like that. I really loved a lot of the products that they were putting out.
Yeah.
Now they're suing Wizards of the Coast because Wizards of the Coast isn't, giving them the business the way they were supposed to, and they're suing them for $950,000. So there's been a lot of discussion on the internet about what all this means and what this is leading to and
Mhm.
what it means for Wizards of the Coast and means for Dungeons and Dragons.
Wow.
One theory or slash two theories kind of tied into one I saw specifically was that Wizards of the Coast might or Hasbro might be looking to sell off Wizards of the Coast or specifically the Dungeons and Dragons IP. Um,
Interesting.
that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Interesting. We've been looking. Well, we've been seeing the rise of these like third party groups that come from money. like Critical Role's adventure, um, or
Mhm.
imprints, I suppose, uh, rather than like people who are just cobbling together adventures and getting bigger and bigger and bigger as time passes. So I I expect that market is out there. People could buy Wizards of the Coast, not people, but people.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
would find a new home.
exactly. Yeah, it could be similar to like the Asmodee thing where
Hmm.
a venture capital company bought them because of the potential for a lot of, new and upcoming IP information that they could
Right?
then turn around and sell and make it for a bunch of money.
Yeah,
Um,
Asmodee
so
way.
there's that, and then of course, that means also, should we start thinking about sixth edition?
I mean, that would be the biggest thing. If anyone was going to purchase them, it would not be for the cavalcade of splat books. Just
Yeah.
the big fifth ed push that is going to inevitably trickle out. Like that purchase, I think is going
Hmm.
to require sixth ed, like a
Yes. Yeah.
whole new
Yeah.
rebuy from the entire community. So, wow, done for marketing reasons, not marketing, but capital reasons, I suppose, instead of just because it's
Yeah.
time for sixth edition. I'm really digging fifth ed, so I'm not ready for that
Yeah.
yet.
No, yeah, I'm interested to see how this all pans out. I've been watching those lawsuits since they started coming out. I think the Margaret Weiss one came out in late September, early
I
October,
think so.
and the Gale Force 9 was earlier this month. So I want to say it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Um,
Wow,
yeah. So anyway,
interesting.
I'll keep following those. And just to kind of see what we see. Right?
Okay,
It's going to be interesting.
I have a lawsuit thing for you as well. It's Wizards of the Coast
Oh yeah.
adjacent, not D&D. It's about Pokemon actually, and there was news yesterday that famed spoonbender Yuri Geller, um, 20 years ago, had realized that in the Pokemon card game, the Kavadra was based off him specifically walking around with like a bent spoon. The big magician trying to play on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if Kavadra is also a fraud, but um,
Right.
Yuri Geller famously like getting beaten by skeptics on every talk show. Um, well, yesterday, the last week or so, I saw it yesterday. Formally came out and said, "I'm sorry. It's been 20 years, and I am going to let it go. Kavadra is unbanned now." um, so now, if you have those 20-year-old Kavadra cards, someone posted like a dark Kavadra, you can play it again. It's legal, I think.
Yay.
I thought that was really funny though. Is like a strange. That's nothing something I've never heard of before, but I remember Kavadra. So I was like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
magic, cool." But no, they got banned because that was specifically and apparently also the original was both specifically based off Yuri Geller, and he was like, "No, thank you.
Oh wow.
I didn't know
I
there
need
was a
to yeah, I need to look at that.
card in
Yeah.
Pokemon." Yeah, check it out.
Oh man. Okay. So, this last bit of news, this is more world news. This is international news. This is very interesting news. Uh in Utah, in one of the parks, there was a giant shining monolith that was recently found.
Mhm.
Apparently it's been there for a while. They were able to find it on Google Maps. And I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but it's gone.
Yeah, so I saw those pictures, I think yesterday or the day before, right? And there's a picture. It's clearly like the two helicopter pilots who saw it stopped and were exploring it. One of them stands on the other one's shoulders. It's definitely about two people tall, and yeah, and then just as miraculously, it's gone.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
That's
So
wild.
anyway,
I love that because there's so many
yeah,
things that could be, and I know we can jump to like, oh, there was like some mysterious group who's going to be hanging around with that thing all the time. Um, there are multiple strange old people who just decide like, I'm going to write a puzzle and hide a thing in the desert. Somewhere nobody goes. The only way you would actually get to this is if you followed my path to find it. There is one I know of in particular. There's supposed to be some big treasure, but it's buried. But I would not be surprised if one of those puzzle paths led to this weird obelisk. And now, oh no, the Google Maps ruined the prize. So I'm going to take that down.
right?
There could be something
Yeah,
like that going on. I have no idea. But I love those stories. I love mysteries of the desert. So that's super cool. I hope we learn more someday.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, it should be so good. All right. So here we are. We are looking at our very brief outline for our adventure that we have been building, and it's an adventure
Hmm.
around a festival. So a couple of few important things that we kicked it off with. We figured out the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, the how. We thought about things along the lines of why would this area be having festivals, who would be having this festival, and why are they having this festival. So every
Hmm.
16th full moon, because gnomes are weird, the gnomes of Waterdeep, um, there's specific sect of gnomes in the religion that follows Gond. They celebrate a religious figure named Laser.
Hmm.
Um, and Laser discovered a new way to bend light that allowed them to save their ancestors from a dragon. And so every 16th full moon, uh, the uh, the the gnomes elect a scientist based off who won the last year's science fair,
Hmm.
and that person gets to light the effigy on fire. That's their prize. There's a science fair going. There's all kinds of weird festival stuff. Gnomes are getting more and more wild as it gets closer and
Hmm.
closer. And here we are in our interest scene. So our interest scene, getting the players into it. They meet Caldwell, who's a middle-aged gnome, loves the festival. It brings more folks to Gond, and
Hmm.
he's essentially Team Chaos in this.
Right.
Because there's two teams, and there's Team Chaos and there's Team Structured and Orderly Gnomes.
Right.
And
This
so
festival is,
they
yeah, yeah. No, go
yeah,
ahead.
exactly. Oh
Pure
yeah,
chaos going
yeah.
on here. All about coffee, right? The effigy is this coffee, uh, also
Uh-huh.
ceremony, and Team Order is like
Yeah.
they're down on coffee. They want tea. They don't like that this whole thing is so disorganized and seemingly chaotic that
Yeah.
they're pulling some shenanigans.
Yeah. And so, the science fair winner, Lads Weir, has gone missing. Caldwell hires the party to find the winner, and the winner has a history of disappearing. Um, and so they normally expect him to have shown up by now, or at least
Hmm.
somebody being able to locate him. And he has been unlocatable. Yeah, that's sure. Right.
Missing.
Missing. So here we go. Their initial investigation. So how to find out what was going on. So I think they went to go look into Dexter's lab.
Right. Yeah, we've named this missing character Dexter just so we could have Dexter's laboratory for the moment.
Yeah.
Um,
We were looking at a couple of the clues. We were going to go with the idea like there's going to be a very easy clue for them to find. So a Kenku
mhm.
feather as DC 10, and then something else is DC 15, something else is DC 20. Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit about the ending twist too. Um, and oh yeah, and then there's something about getting the two tribes of gnomes to work together through their interesting innovations and inventions, and the
Right.
final conflict is going to be against a mech that has gone wild.
That's right. So Team Order
Okay.
has put forth some sort of way to stop this or change this to sabotage the festival. Um, and whoever they contacted, this rogue mech or whatever is going on here, they are not happy about what's happening. They kind of regret their
Mm-hmm.
actions, right? So we still need to meet
Yeah.
one member of that team who is kind of like the party's interface with Team Order. And then we had also talked last time about how if you find these wonderful objects, you could get them, you could work on them with Team Chaos or buy them there, but Team Order can fix them and make them do something different. A little less
Yeah.
dramatic, maybe, but more um, certain
More
about
orderly.
what's going to
Yeah,
happen.
more
Yeah,
certain. Less of a random chance. Yeah.
exactly.
All right. So okay. I need to kind of reset things a little bit. So getting our players into it. Let's see. So that initial scene should be set for a meeting place,
Hmm.
and I think that should be the science lab, or not science lab, and I think that should be the science fair.
Oh yeah, right. Science fair is happening. It's at least a day before, right? You get this opportunity to
Yeah.
look through all the science fair items. Um, and Are they just here at the fair? Period. Are they sent to the fair to look around, or is it just like, are we
I
enjoying this moment?
I I feel like they were sent for,
Okay.
and that's so. Yeah, let's talk about hooks, right?
Mhm.
So here's a couple of hooks, right? So maybe someone was sent for, because what levels did we decide this was going to be? Did we decide this was going to be levels?
I think we talked about it. I mean, this feels like a tier 1 or 2.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe 3 to 5,
we have a DC 20 listed here under Dexter's Lab, so I would say probably in that tier 2, like levels 4 or 5,
4 or 5. All right,
somewhere in there.
perfect. Yeah, so let's think about it. Someone sent for the party and invited them to the fair
Right?
uh, to discuss an issue they have. All right, so there's one.
Right.
One
And
hook could be
mhm,
one of the players is a gnome
that's a perfect one,
from
right?
one
They
faction
know
or the
about the
other.
festival. They want to go. Or they've been invited specifically, maybe to be like one of the judges of the science fair. Could be fun.
Yeah,
Um, but I think either of these hooks are leading us to this person who has an issue, Caldwell, who is going to find them um, after they've kind of explored a little bit. Um,
yeah,
oh, nice. Yeah, an
there we go.
artificer
Let's
would
go
be a
with that.
perfect judge for what's going on here. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and here we go. And I think a knowledge cleric would be good too.
Yeah.
There we go. So now we have a couple of hooks to bring
Hmm.
people in. This is why your players are here. So you set the meeting place. It's the science fair. It's happening. Um, here the intention of the science fair scene. This scene is to showcase the craziness, the wildness of the science fair
Hmm.
and the festivities around it,
This is an interesting thing too.
as
I
well
noticed this.
as
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry. Go for it.
Oh yeah, I was just saying, as well as getting the players into the adventure.
Right. I see this in a lot of adventures that have a festival component like this. Is that it
Hmm.
happens early or it happens late? But if you put it right in the middle, they're going to run right through it. They're just going to push through and be like, I don't have time to go
Yeah.
to this booth with your wild stuff. I'm on the track of a murderer or something, right? So we kind of want them to investigate while they still don't have anything on their plate. Um, or at least when it's light enough that they could be like, that can wait for a second. But as soon as we introduce this missing gnome, I don't expect them to start interacting with more of these shops until they've found the gnome.
Right.
Although they could, because there's cool items. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. So let's talk about. So then yeah, here we can make a little subsection. We can call this our to-do list.
Hmm.
And so this would be like outline a handful of vendors
Right?
and projects. Boom, just like that.
Yeah. And we don't have to list out all of them, but for sure there are some that are going to be memorable, some that are going to be important. So having that shorter list is going to be good. And then just mentioning, yeah, there's plenty more. Oh my gosh, you don't have time to see it all. Or
Right,
maybe these are
exactly.
like
Yeah.
the probable winners. Maybe these are the ones that
Hmm.
look the best. I want to check them out. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, these are the ones that stand out for some reason.
mhm. Yeah.
Like toss one or two in there that are just atrociously bad.
Yeah.
Smoke up in the presenter's face type of bad.
Hmm.
Maybe they panicked and they have to throw a bucket of water on something bad. Things
Yeah.
like that, right? And I think that would be a ton of fun.
Sounds good. Okay, so I like that. So we build that, we let them explore. They've maybe purchased
Mhm.
some things. Maybe they're running around with armfuls of let's see, quickly
Of
decaying
strange goods.
arcane fireworks. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Um, and then as they're running through, they are finally met by Caldwell, who's been on the lookout for them. Tracks them down
Yeah.
after, you know, whenever we're ready. We might want to write in a like when to move this scene along sort of thing. I always like those kind of development sections. Um,
Oh yeah. Here, let's toss that into a to-do list. Yeah.
it's one thing I was trying to do with
Perfect.
my kids' adventure is right. When does this scene end, and where do you go from here? Just to make it a little clearer. Um, but yeah, it might be whenever they've exhausted this list or seem ready to move on to. As soon as someone says, which my students always do, "Can I hit something now?" Like, okay, let's move on to scene two.
Yeah. Oh my god. All right. So that was yeah. Here, let's do that. So intro scene. So that's scene one. Scene one. Boom. All right. So now we go
Boom.
to scene two. Let's see. Yeah, that should work. Except it didn't. Like a jerk.
Oh, uh, Caldwell, our wonderful Team Chaos. I love the idea that we are working along this like neutrality axis, right? So we've just got this lawful
Right.
neutral versus lawful, or rather chaotic neutral, maybe more skewed towards good, but they can both be allowed to be a little bit bad. I think
Very good.
Caldwell is a pretty
All right.
positive force here for
Yeah.
copyright
Yeah.
purposes.
He. Right. Yeah. No. Caldwell's gonna be. He's gonna be a. He's gonna be fun. He's going to be a joy to be around.
Mhm.
Uh, but he is also part of a sub cult of Gond, not
of
cult,
the coffee
subsect.
drinkers of Gond.
Right, a subsect of Gond called the Coffee Drinkers. And of course, we can go through and adjust some of this. But okay, so anyway, so
The
here
coffee
they go. They
drinkers and
go
the tea sippers. Yeah.
right, yeah, the teetotalers. Uh, what do we? What do we?
It's perfect.
All right. So the first place that seems obvious that they would go check out, and that's one of those things too, is scene two. Let's do actually scene two can be the investigation,
Mhm.
and then we can have different locations. Um,
Right. So let's think
locations.
about that. So definitely the lab is the one that makes the most sense. Um,
Right.
but there could be other places where Dexter was expected to be. Maybe there is a maybe the site where Dexter always sets up their cart out in the festival. Um, maybe they moved something in and then just never finished or something.
Yeah.
Um, uh, where else would be interesting?
Dex's favorite coffee shop.
Ooh, that's a good one. Maybe they have some knowledge, right? Because Dexter would hang out there
Mm-hmm.
every once in a while. It's a good social scene. I like that.
Yeah. I let's come up with 5 locations and then make it so that if they get to 3 by then they're able to put together a better picture that should lead them to the next scene.
Sure. Um, well, then we could also do the Temple of Gond. Maybe
Yep. I like that.
that would be a useful one. Um, you know what? It would be nice to actually get one of these families that we've talked about who are building these effigies of dragons that are going to get burnt down. Um,
Oh yeah.
maybe Dexter is connected, is like the cousin of a family who is building one of those, just so we can see that like crafting.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go with effigy builder.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
Maybe it's a cousin.
Maybe it's a cousin. Yeah, right. Someone who should know.
Yeah.
Um, so Caldwell kind of lays out these options. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know. See if you can find anything.
Exactly. Let's see here. We'll make that DC 10. They find a Kenku feather in Dex's lab. Okay, so here we go. So in Dex's lab, Dex's lab is, I don't know, is it? He is part of the chaotic gnomes, but he's a
Mhm.
little bit of a recluse. Um, I think oh man, like
I
I keep
love the
going back and
idea.
forth.
Yeah. Mhm.
Is the lab like too clean, or is the lab a disgusting pigsty, but it doesn't actually seem like any foul deeds had happened?
So I think we could split the difference, right? It is engineering clean, maybe. So it's got like pathways that lead through the lab, but clutter is like packed all around it. So it's almost like a warren. Um, I would say, if you are medium size, you actually have to crawl through here. You cannot stand up because it's gnome size. It's perfectly like you can see
Yeah,
Dexter's shape moving through here. um, that could be a lot of fun, giving medium creatures disadvantage on their investigation check in here is funny. I don't know that we need to do that. It's just a penalty. But that's kind of like what I've got in my mind, like an orc just crawling through this lab trying to find anything
yeah,
would be a ton of fun. Or a
yeah.
Goliath. Oh my
I
god.
All medium creatures or bigger, because I
Mhm.
guess there's potential for that, or bigger have disadvantage on all dex checks and dex perception and investigation.
And meanwhile, like we've got these 5 locations. We know they're going to be tied to certain character types, right? Of course, the artificers are going to come to this laboratory. Maybe they're getting advantage on some of these things.
Yeah, and and I kind of like the balancing, right? So like
Mhm.
all medium creatures have disadvantage on dex checks, perception, investigation, but maybe they get strength checks, bonuses on strength checks to move things or something if they
Oh,
need to.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they could easily knock one
Uh,
of these big piles over and show the
yeah.
whole wall. Um, but that those artificers, those knowledge clerics, they might come in here and see like, oh, this is exactly how I would set up my workshop. Okay, so over here, here's the drawer, like in the ceiling. That's what we need.
Yes. Everything sized for gnomes. Apply the following benefits and penalties.
And this doesn't have to be true in all these scenes, but I love it for just making this scene weird,
Yeah, right?
and a little unique. Is always fun.
Oh man, my spelling is way off today. That's okay. Just don't look. Okay.
No.
So all medium and larger creatures that do. Yeah, okay, that's good. And then let's see here. All int base characters. That'd be artificer and wizard, as well
Oh, fair
as
enough. Yeah.
knowledge clerics
Mhm.
get advantage on all saves and investigation, all
That's
deck
true.
saves, because we we're going to need to make people make deck saves, all deck
True.
saves and investigation perception checks.
Yeah, and if we decide, I mean, this is good. We could also boil that down to like if you have proficiency in Tinker's tools or something like that, something that is really
Oh yeah.
would give us that reason a little broadly. I don't know. It's hard to I think limit character classes in general. So
Yeah.
there's always going to be a corner
uh
case. So we'll make a note like DMs just be yeah okay. If your character is a reasonable reason to get advantage in here, then do it.
yeah. Then we can figure out how to word that best later. All right.
Exactly.
Okay, and so, you know, I mean, we're gonna have medium and small creatures in here. So
Mhm.
I wanted to add this deck saves. I think the deck saves bit here is can be interesting because we're talking about these crazy piles full of like um all kinds of like towers and strange
Mhm.
contraptions that could get zapped. And so that gives us an opportunity to create like a, you know, a table, right?
Oh yeah.
Um let's
And
see.
this could be an interesting one because it could be like a beneficial and negative one thing. There could be some things we find in here that are positive, and also some that just explode.
Yeah. All right.
Vials of
So
acid, all sorts of things.
yeah. I know I can make a table. Yeah, there we go. Inline table. Perfect. So this would be things that could go wrong. We can update that table later.
Hmm.
So this is the thing. This is going to be the save. We'll just change that to text. And this will be the roll. We'll go. All right. I can make that better later.
Hmm.
But what we do is we then, you know, we just come up with 6 of them, right? And
Sounds
that's
good.
simple enough, right?
Hmm.
One, boom,
I
right? And
love it.
so, what could go wrong? Things that could go wrong, and what triggers these things go more so? Yeah, what
I mean, yeah,
triggers this table?
I think honestly, the thing they're going to be doing in here is trying to investigate, right? So I
Yeah,
think on an investigation check, maybe this place is there's you pull out the drawer you're looking for, but there's a wire attached to something else, and something else happens. It could just be
yeah,
that um, Dexter is very secretive and has protected this place with not traps, but totally traps.
yeah. Okay, so on a failed investigation check or a what else? A failed Dex strength check as well,
Sure, yeah.
right? And then let's do. Actually, let's make this 10, right? And so part of the reason for that is I want to do 9 to 10, where it's these two, and on that roll, nothing happens.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah,
All
and then just to
right.
make sure that this happens a couple times, like I like the idea that there are these three things they could find in here, so they need to make a couple different checks as they're exploring. And we can talk about that as
Yeah.
like, you're weaving through the rooms of this lab. In this room, you find bam, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so in order to successfully complete this part of the investigation, you got to make a couple checks. You might find some things, you might not.
Yeah. So success equals 2 successes on
Sure.
finding clues, and then the party can move on.
Hmm.
They gain X information. We'll just put X information, and and then depending on you're a little better with mysteries and such as I am since you wrote the book on them. But what we can do, one of my thoughts is because of the way we're structuring this, what we could do is we could do a thing in which we have, oh hey, thanks for the follow, Heroes in Theory. What we could do here is we could do something along the lines of where we have a pool of clues that maybe aren't necessarily tied to a specific location, and once they get
Yep.
the enough of those clues, they should be able to put together the picture. And then
Hmm.
that could even be a thing. Once they get X clues, then the final clue you give is Y.
That makes
Does
a
that
lot of
make
sense.
sense?
So, yeah, absolutely. Because then that means if they fail this first check, a bad thing happens. But really, for the way the adventure works, nothing bad has really happened, right? They haven't missed something.
Right.
They just missed an opportunity
Exactly.
to gain something. So
Yeah.
I like that. So we just got to decide where these are all going to lead them, and then we can figure out what those clues are. But that means for this DC 10, this could be clue A, um,
Yeah.
or they find a clue, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, they just find a clue.
mhm.
And then what we could do is we could do something along the lines of where we would go ahead and let me think about how I want to word this. Uh, there we go. So what we could do is each of these rooms has 3 DCs. So DC 10 is the first clue they find, DC 15
Uh-huh.
second clue, DC 20 third clue, and no matter what, we just have that same pool of clues and we just give those out.
Right. Right. So
Okay.
it's almost like going to this location gives them 3 opportunities to find clues. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
Dex's cart only gives you 1 opportunity, or the coffee shop, or something like that, right? Um, they need to get 5 of those opportunities, succeed on those, and then they have completed the investigation.
Yep. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that.
Okay. That sounds
So
good.
let's go investigation. So to do create create a pool of clues.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. Overall concept for this whole investigation. Man. Is going to be have a pool of clues that the party can find in various locations. After finding 5 clues, the 6th success is the clue the final clue that should tie it all together.
Right. One thing I really like about investigations like this is if we do it this way, right, which I love, they have an opportunity to just bust out 6 clues, and that 6th one really gives us the answer to it, right? But a lot of groups, once they get the first one, they're going to be like, Kenku feather, let's go find a Kenku and beat them up. um, and they start moving, and now a DM's got to decide, like, how do we work with that? The investigation's not done. I mean, we could tell them, like, well, you think your investigation is incomplete. Um, but they might get off and running, like, before we get to that final part, which I think is fun. Um, that's always what I want out of one of these investigations.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. It's like I want them to succeed. I want them to feel good about succeeding, and I want them to
Mhm.
kind of see where we are going with it before we even get there.
Right. So yeah, we want, that 6th one could also be, this is the answer. But by the time you get 5, you could also put
Exactly.
together the answer if you wanted to with those.
Yeah. Yeah, that way they have 2 ways to succeed essentially.
Mhm. And we could say that if they get them, if they don't get it right, I don't know, pull out the DMG and do some sort of random encounter. Because when you go arguing, take a Tengu feather wherever you want to, maybe something does happen, but it's not what we were looking for.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's why having the pool of clues will help us out a little bit more. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe we come up with like 8 clues, but they just
Hmm.
take 5, and then you
Yeah.
can kind of guide the DM a little bit, like say, okay, try to do them in approximately this order that makes sense, and we
Yeah.
think that clue
Hmm.
should unveil it to your players where to go look next.
Right.
We are running a little bit shorter on time than I would have liked, but let's talk
We could
about
write
these other
this for
places real
days.
quick.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. No, this one's much more involved than any of our others.
Mhm.
So we have Dex's cart. So there they could find some clues, sifting through the rubbish. Uh, you know, uh, Kind of the same thing. Dex's favorite coffee shop. This is where they could gather information. Same
Mhm.
thing with Temple of Gond. It's a gathering of information. Effigy builder, the cousin, gathering information. But you might be able to find some clues there. Maybe that's where he was taken from. That type of thing.
Yeah. Which is the thing that we should decide which of these was the last, the place where they were taken from. The FG
Right.
builder is one that makes sense. Maybe the cousin is too scared to say anything. That could be possible.
Mm-hmm.
Could also be from the
Yeah.
Temple of Gond that you find clues around there.
Yeah, I mean, one other option is we could make a final clue at any of these, and they're
Oh,
just
that's
three
true.
individual clues. Yeah, it's like, and then we could do the final clue specific to the scene to do.
Oh, I like that. So you discover finally that they were taken from this location, and then here's like the
Yep,
5 different ways that could happen. That could be pretty quick. Um, that's
yep.
smart. That makes sense.
And then,
Doesn't quite
yeah,
make
and
it
then the more
replayable,
no, but whatever.
but it's a good sandbox
Well,
style way to do this.
I, I mean, it kind of does, right? Because potentially what we could do is, we could have a slightly different encounter for each of the different investigation spots at the very end. It's the same encounter, but it just
Hmm.
takes place at different locations.
Yes. Yep. You're right.
Like,
That
what
which would
about
be
that?
great.
Takes place at different locales with different with a variety of environmental things going on.
Yeah.
We'll just go
Yeah.
with that.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
right. Like, maybe if the final place they look is the lab, it leads to sewers. Maybe if it's the Temple of God, it actually leads to deeper into the temple, right?
Hmm.
Maybe it leads into one of the attic rooms. If it's the effigy builder cousin, maybe the cousin's in cahoots, and you find a back shed or something, right?
Yeah.
Or it leads you to a whole nother, like a warehouse somewhere. That type of thing. That could be that could be a
Hmm.
ton of fun. Then you could definitely have some replayability. Not a lot still,
That's
but
true.
some.
Right, because you'd have like different mechanics around the adventure, but probably you're facing the same foes. That would be a little too wild if it was 5 different sets of enemies at that point, because that leads you all sorts of directions.
Yeah,
You want to
yeah,
get
and
them
then
back
maybe
on the path of order.
exactly. Yeah, and then like maybe certain clues, like we could do like a clue sheet where certain clues have bonuses in certain final encounters.
Mhm.
So, like if you find this clue of a Kenku feather at Dex's lab, well, you'll find out that Kenku feather actually will help you in the X, Y, Z, because everything's
Yeah,
mad in here, right?
right.
So like if the, maybe that unlocks a door. Maybe that's actually a key, and they're able to put that together when they see the instance. So then it unlocks something that'll make the final encounter easier in some way or different. Oh man,
I like it. It's a lot of
there's a
cool
lot of
randomness, but
cool ideas.
it's what we would expect, I think, out of an adventure that is focused on this like chaotic element. We're
Yeah.
certainly setting up something where the DM is going to need to be on their game to figure out what's going on. This is definitely isn't a linear path,
Hmm.
but I really like
Right.
it, and I love the idea that they are going to be able to. Well, we found these 3 clues, so that means we now have like, okay, connect these two, we get a thing. Connect these two, we get a thing. There's all sorts of stuff they
Yeah.
could do on top of their ridiculous items that they've gathered that they might be chaotic or orderly. Um,
Right.
it'd be a lot of choices. This is a multi-session adventure, and I really like it.
I. Yeah. All right. So, oh, and I think that actually takes us to the final conflict, right? Because that takes us to what, H1. This would be scene 3, and I mean these are all each scenes a little bit, right?
Mhm.
But this adventure seems like a very very role play heavy adventure, very investigation heavy adventure.
Mhm.
There may only be one conflict because I can't think of anywhere they would go after this.
Right. They go. So they. So we're saying that they save
Oh,
Caldwell or Dexter rather,
oh yeah,
or
that's
do
right.
they
No,
find
scene 3 is confrontation. Yeah.
confrontation? So maybe whatever they do, whatever happens, is they don't find. Well, they find Dexter. Or are they going to find Dexter in scene 2, or do the
No,
Order
no, they're gonna
Masters
find.
have Dexter?
Yeah, so scene confrontation order masters, right?
The teetot. Oh gosh, teetotalers. There
The
we go.
T. Yeah. The T totaling, tallying,
That's where my head kept going. Is like T
the
totalitarian.
T nerds, order masters. All right.
There we go.
Um, the Tanoms. All right. So all right. So that's scene 3, which means H was, and then scene 4 will be the final scene.
There we go. So that is, we are going to save this festival, make sure it doesn't go off the rails.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah. So this leads to the teetotalers, which will affect the final scene.
mhm,
But I think the teetotaler scene, this is always the same, right?
right.
It's just the clue leads to wherever the teetotalers are, and then the teetotalers are like, "Oh, hey, things are way out of hand.
Yeah,
Here's where they are. Go get them."
right. So that can be pretty straightforward. Um,
Uh,
let's see. I mean, well, not straightforward. They're going to have a lot of questions probably um, for this
or
character. Hmm.
hear me out. This is already a pretty complex adventure. What if it does lead to the final conflict, and we find that the people the teetotalers hired are holding the teetotalers captive, as well as
Oh,
uh, our friend?
that sounds good. We're going to do this. Like you paid us to do a job. We're going to do the job, whether you like it or not.
Uh-huh.
That could be interesting. I like that. Um, so they're here. They're also under guard. You get here. You see Dexter and these very well dressed gnomes, very like bright white suits and whatever else they're wearing. Um,
Yeah.
but let's see. Okay, okay, I can
They're
see
all,
that.
they're not tied up. They are in a cage. They are all
Ooh,
in a cage that has Tesla coils generating the bars out of electricity.
I like it. I like it. Right, it is limiting their ability to use any of their magical abilities. I'm sure a couple of these are clerics, but they can't
Yeah.
cast anything out of it. Maybe we dig in and we like, oh, it's a Faraday cage, so that's why no one could find them with any of their
Yeah.
detection spells. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the only thing that's kind of the same in all of them, right? So then
Mhm.
what we do is based on clues, location, and maybe even mech, right? Because we decided that we're going to have a big mechy type monster. So
Yes. Okay. So, like, if you found the Kenku feather, then this has some sort of like mechanical wings and has a flighting speed.
yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
How do we get
That's
rid of that?
that's wild. I
All
love
right.
the idea that we talked about these bells early, right? The bells that are ringing down
Yeah.
until the effigy starts, and like every time you
Yeah.
investigate a different location, you hear another bell. You know it's getting closer, and so you are tempted to kind of stop the investigation early. But if you go all the way through it, this enemy has tons of weird abilities.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
oh, exciting!
Yeah. And then we can even make it a two-phase creature. So once the first pool of hit points are gone,
Mhm.
and this is kind of nerdy stuff that I love doing. I love designing weird two-phase, three-phase monsters that do different things.
Yeah.
Once first HP is gone, it uh, a bell tolls. The second to last bell tolls
Yeah.
to keep the adventurers on their feet, and the machination shifts
Perfect.
into form 2. Yeah, so all right. So this is pretty great. So you could go, yeah, so based off the clues, you could go like you find a Kenku feather. So you end up
Mhm.
at the docks, but yeah, you're fighting a mech that can fly every other turn, right? Like it can fly at
Right.
speed, but it has to land at the end of its turn, that type
Mhm.
of thing. But it can do some cool dive bomby stuff or something, right?
Right.
You find the greenish brick, and you're going to be facing something in the sewers, and it has the ability to create a wave of sewage that you have to make a con save, that type of thing, and
I
kind
love it.
of go
Mhm.
against. You find some straw from a very specific effigy, like you notice early on, like, oh, there's one effigy with black straw for some reason. Well, you find some
Mhm.
black straw, and well, now the mech you're fighting is actually that effigy, and that flings fire at you or something, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
we could get real weird with this, and
Oh,
it could be a
totally.
ton of fun. Um, you could have a ton of fun custom magic items that are great for uh, this session, this adventure, or for the entire campaign.
Hmm.
I think this is pretty cool for,
Yeah.
i- yeah, for this adventure. I think this is going to be probably a good 4 hour session at least, if not
Hmm.
maybe 2 3 hour sessions.
Yeah. I think
But yeah,
depending on how that
I think it's
investigation
good.
goes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I also
yeah.
I love the idea that that first phase is like, all right, so you've done enough, like those augments start falling off, and you have to deal with this
Hmm.
core, which is now a like maybe it is a single entity at this point that everyone has to face.
Yeah.
Those extras
Yeah,
are
the
kind of
same
gone at
core.
this point. Yeah, and we make that nasty. That'll be fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we have an adventure. There's definitely a lot to fill out here.
I mean, yeah.
There, there's a lot to kind of dig into here. I mean, we're still working on the first one from 3 months ago, so it's going to be a while. But we're gonna keep plugging away and hopefully get these out to you soon.
Oh, that's
But yeah,
yes.
thanks so much everyone for coming and hanging out with us today as we wrap up festival month. And Rich, what are we doing next month?
Oh, that's a good question. Gosh, what do I need us to write about next, huh? um, I um, I know that the next adventure I need to write is aquatic, so um,
Oh,
that either means we
yeah.
should do that or we should avoid that.
Oh, I think that would be fun. Let's do some aquatic adventures. Do we want to
Yeah,
do
talk
more
about
like
some.
deep ocean adventures, or do we want to do something like ship based?
I think that there's room for both of those. Ship based is
Okay.
great. I like ship based a
Yeah.
lot.
I guess yeah. I guess with the idea, are they going to be potentially diving to interact with another society or treasures or that type of stuff, or is it going to be more focused on ship to ship kind of combat?
I don't expect ship to ship in my adventure.
Okay, perfect.
Although talking
Uh,
about that is of course no problem. Mine is going to be a ship that is going to a place and then they will do some diving, which I think is a
let's
classic motif.
Ax- ap- Absolutely. Let's do Ocean Adventures starting next month. So,
Nice.
starting next Sunday, we will be talking about Ocean Adventures and doing the same thing. Where the first week we talk about some cool ideas to build into adventures, and then with the help of the chat on both YouTube now as well as Twitch, we will be digging through and using your advice, your comments, your thoughts, your ideas to build this adventure as a collaborative effort, and yeah, it'll be a ton of fun.
Fantastic.
All right, and I think we are on for tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. to continue our deep delve into feats
The
for
feats.
fifth edition. Yeah, and I think that'll be a ton of fun too. So once again, thank you so much, and I guess we'll see you next time.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
All right, thanks. Bye.